everybody, welcome to Dulcimerica. My name is Futch. I'm in Hanover, Pennsylvania, camping out, enjoying some of the post-4th of July festivities, which means a lot of sitting around eating leftovers and hoping it doesn't rain upon my head and the heads of our cameras. But I don't think it's going to, because I've got an hour and we're going to knock them out pretty quick. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys very much. Today I'm going to be focusing on different types of picking and some little things that you may or may not observe when you're checking people out as they're playing on stage or watching videos. I'll go over some finger picking, some flat picking, and some selective strumming as well, talking about this very, very special part of the fretboard where all your engine action takes place. However, before I get to that point, I want to give a big shout out to one of my patrons on Patreon, Sandra Vandeen. Sandra, thank you for your support and for your encouragement. You are one of the many folks I have in my community who are supporting what I do, and it means an awful lot. On this tour alone, you guys have helped out with some very, very special, what could have been close calls, but not really close calls, because you guys were there and I was able to kind of pick up the pieces and move on. Nothing huge. I had a blown tire and my generator went out in Kentucky, actually Indiana. But that's okay, because having that little bit of extra money in the bank really helps me to go ahead and say, go ahead and do the work, and we keep moving forward. My patrons do a lot more than that. They are a fantastic community of people and support folks that I meet everywhere I go, and I like to share stuff with them, not only in real time and real space, but also through my patron-only feed. It's only $5 a month to get in. It gets you everything I've ever released on CD and books and self-published form. It gives you all kinds of behind-the-scenes action, tablature, and a whole lot more. For just the cost of a triple, is it a triple venti caramel macchiato at Starbucks? It's like $5, $5 a month. Get you the store plus everything new. All my new music, all on my new tab, all my new book pages, all go directly to my patrons before anybody else sees them, along with high-quality episodes of Dulcimerica weeks before anybody else sees them as well. So think about joining in and look right down here at this link. There will also be a little link popping up here somewhere. Check it out. Watch the video, see some of the incentives for people pledging in higher tiers, and think about coming along to become a part of my art. Sandra Vandeen, thank you very much. And all my patrons, you guys totally, totally rock. So, I want to make sure you guys totally rock by being able to work your right hand like the engine that it is. I'm going to give you a real quick breakdown here on some techniques that will help you become a better player, and also put a lot more snap and rhythm and groove into your right hand playing. The first thing I want to focus on is this area right down here called the Strum Hollow. It's known as the Strum Hollow, but people tend to, when they strum there, get themselves caught into a couple of different things. One, the tension in the strings is a lot tighter in the Strum Hollow, and you can hear if you strum from like right about where your lower tone holes are, closer to the bridge, and listen to the sound of the tone. See how it gets really brittle there? And that's just because of the string tension that's really, really tighter where it's connected to the bridge point here. And if you were to strum up here by the nut, the same thing would happen up here. You may notice that fretting there can be a little painful sometimes, and it's harder to bend strings at the first fret, second fret, and it's harder to strum down here because there's more tension going on there. So I always advise people to go right here for the sweet spot. It's going to be just above the Strum Hollow, somewhere around your lower tone hole. So if you strum that area, you'll get the nicest, warmest, richest sound that the mountain dulcimer has to offer. Now this comes with it some difficulty that you have to be aware of. If you're strumming, no problem. But if you're flat picking, picking individual notes, I like to kind of dig down deep into the strings a bit so I can feel the contact of that string, that registration of the string against the pick. Well, you can't dig down too deep when you're in the sweet spot because you're going to run into fretboard just right there underneath the strings. So when I do flat pick, I come to the edge of the Strum Hollow, not way deep into it where the sound becomes nasal and brittle, but right to where I call the shallow end of the Strum Hollow, right about there, where I won't make contact with the fretboard, but I also will be able to dig down deep, still get some of that sweet mellow sound, and do my flat picking there. So you'll notice when I'm flat picking, if I strum and flat pick, I will move back and forth between the sweet spot and the area at the edge of the strum hollow, and that's going to give you nice control and a nicer sound as well. By the way, that song I was playing at the beginning is called Twinkle. I learned it from Terry Lewis, and it's one of the tablature that you can get in Mountain Dulcimer in the Band series, and it's also available to my patrons on Patreon. So let's take a look at that action with the right hand playing Twinkle. Twinkle's a mixture of doing a lot of flat picking and doing a lot of strumming. So when I play that intro part, you can see I'm right down there at the edge of the strum hollow, so that gives me a nice connection with the strings. But then, as I get into the chords, I'll move up here to where it's nice and smooth and mellow. Then I back out and come back forward. Right? Now, of course, you can do all of your picking, your flat picking, in the sweet spot. And if you're adding those strums and you're just sort of fingering, but you're not really flat picking, you can get away with it. For example, if you were to do something like Turkey in the Straw. You can hang right out there in the sweet spot and not worry about having to contact the fretboard when you're digging deep, because all you're doing is using your left hand to pick the notes or to choose the notes, but you're not picking them individually, you're going all the way across in a strum thing. But if I were to slow down, or not slow down, but if I were to change up and just do the flat picking, I would move down here for something like Turkey in the Straw. And then move again. So watch the hands, watch the right hands of a lot of your favorite players when they're doing something that goes back and forth between flat picking and strumming. You're going to find out that there's a lot of movement going back and forth, and you may not always notice that if you're really watching the left hand, but there's a lot of dynamics happening with the right hand as well. Speaking of dynamics, let's get into finger picking real quick. One basic motion you want to learn, or one basic move that you want to learn with the finger picking on the Mountain Dulcimer, involves two fingers and the thumb. You get these two fingers, and you're going to pull in on the bass string and on the middle string, pulling them towards you. The thumb against the melody string, it's pushing away from you. You get those three strings like that, and you squeeze them, and they'll all kind of contract towards each other. Then you can squeeze, pluck them, and then remove your fingers from the strings and sound your chord. That's called pinching. Ouch! And then, with those fingers, you will do a roll. Bass, middle, melody, bass, middle, melody, bass, middle, melody, bass, middle, melody. This is a great exercise to do if you're just sitting around the house watching TV. Just to get that muscle memory going, is to do that 1, 2, 3 over again. Now, this is great for 3/4 time, not so great for 4/4 time. So for squaring that up, you'll want to add another note in there, come back towards the middle string like this. And you can mix those up in a lot of different ways. You'll notice that I use a couple of fingers down here against the fretboard to keep my hand in place. That's called posting or anchoring. I use it when I strum, I use it when I flat pick, and when I do all kinds of stuff. Even my left hand, I sometimes get fingers up against the side of the fretboard just to stabilize my hands and keep them from floating all over the place, because without that, if you're bopping and grooving and your hands are moving, you might miss a fret or miss a string, and by posting I just make sure I've got a point of reference to know exactly where I need to be to make all that stuff happen. That's what's happening there. And the idea with flat picking is to find your melody and let that melody be the connective thread between the chord changes. So don't worry about changing chords at the same time being there on the downbeat. Follow the melody thread, and then that will lead you over to being able to connect the dots basically in the chords and walk your way through the chords. A good example of that is my arrangement of Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. So what's happening there is I'm using the melody to compel myself through the fretboard area, and when I get to the next chord, instead of hitting it all at one time, I'm arpeggiating through that chord using the two fingers and the thumb. Arpeggios are a really, really big key right here. You can just kind of make your way through. Doesn't matter which direction you go, whether you go towards the bass string or whether you go towards the melody string. If you do follow one rule of thumb, and that is make sure that the melody is king and don't do anything to obscure the melody, then everything else is completely up to you. There is no right or wrong way to arpeggiate through your chords or anything. The only thing you need to do is make sure that the melody is being served by your rhythms and by your chord changes. Other than that, it's all about you. But that was a real quick look at some things I've been thinking about recently and teaching this summer while on tour about the Strum Hollow and the sweet spot, about flat picking, about posting, about finger picking and basic rhythms to get your way across the fretboard. All of these things and a lot more things coming to you on future episodes of Dulcimerica. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you watching and sharing this link to the Dulcimerica webpage with other people. I'll be back with a lot more right after this. But until next time, this is Bing Futch saying, y'all be good to each other out there.